Patrick's Day, Strathmore. As Carlos said, I work at the Library of Congress in an office called the American Folklife Center, which is kind of our government's national folklore archive and study center. And I've been an admirer of Carlos's music for many years, since his first album came out, maybe in the early 90s. But I first met Carlos a few years ago. When he came to our archive to do some research. And he was doing research because we have in our archive one of the first extensive collections of traditional Galician folk music that was ever made. And it was made by a man named Alan Lomax in the early 1950s. Carlos came to our archive and he did research on the Alan Lomax collection, and he read all of the field notes and he listened to all the recordings, and he decided it would be a great idea to do a concert. And you know, Carlos has these ideas, and before you know it, there's 50 people on a stage somewhere. So he had this idea to do a concert around the Lomax materials, and he came to the library in August, and we did such a concert. And one of the things he asked me to do was to read some passages from Alan Lomax's field notes, and they made it clear that Alan Lomax really believed in this connection that Carlos has been talking about, of the connection between Ireland and Spain, and Galicia in particular. But that connection, as Carlos has said, goes back thousands of years, and it's really a story about the sea and the wind. And that's because the sea, the Atlantic Ocean along the coast of Europe, was really a great road in antiquity, and people used that corridor to sail in their ships and to take their culture to different lands. And this is the way in which people got around. And if you look at linguistic history, it seems very likely, in fact, that the Gaelic language came to Ireland from Spain. And certainly one of the main theories is that the Celtic languages that existed in Spain by about 200 BC, they're called Celtiberian and Galician, that those languages may have been the historical ancestors, direct ancestors of Irish Gaelic. So that's one of those connections that's made. And then, of course, many years later, scholars have also noted, as Carlos said, that bagpipes turn up in Britain and in Ireland a few years after they turn up in cathedral carvings in Spain in the Middle Ages. So it's possible that years later, the bagpipe took this same historical route. But it's indisputable that in the legendary history of Ireland, the Gaelic people came to Ireland from Spain. And both Irish people and Spanish people believed this for a long time. And so Irish people went to Spain, and Spanish people went to Ireland. And in Irish music, we have tunes with names like the Spanish Cloak, and the Spanish Lady, and the Salamanca Reel. So those are all products of that cultural exchange. And it's also true that up until the very late 18th century, the kings of Spain considered Irish people to be Spaniards living abroad. And if Irish people went to Spain, they had all the rights of Spanish subjects, which was not true of other foreigners. So this belief in the legendary history continued for a very long time, down to really early modern times. So what is this legendary history? Well, if you look at the medieval Irish book that's called the Book of Invasions, this lays out the history. And you may have heard the phrase, or the word, the Milesians, used to describe Irish Gaels. And this word comes from the Book of Invasions. And Milesians means the descendants of Meal. And Meal seems to be a proper name in Old Irish, but it's a shortened form. It's the first name of a person. And the full name is Mil Espana. And Mil Espana shows up also in the Latin histories of the time. But in the Latin histories, it's clear that it's not actually a proper name. It's a phrase in Latin, which means Spanish soldier or warrior from Spain. And the legendary history of Ireland in the Book of Invasions says that the Gaelic language first started and spread across the continent and spread to Spain, and that the sons of Meal were living in Spain, and they decided to go and invade Ireland. And there were 7 sons of Meal, and they set out in their ships. They had 65 ships, and they had 40 chieftains, and they had hundreds of men. And they set out for Ireland, and they invaded Ireland. And the first one of them to set foot in Ireland was one of the sons of Meal, one of the 7 sons of Meal, and his name was Amergin. And Amergin, when he first set his foot on the soil of Ireland, the first thing that he did was he recited a poem. And it was a poem about the wind and the sea. And so this is the Song of Amergin. I am the wind on the sea. I am the wave on the shore. I am the roaring of the surf. I am a stag of 7 tines. I am a hawk upon a cliff. I am a teardrop of the sun. I am the fairest among flowers. I am the boldness of a boar. I am a salmon in a pool. I am a lake within a plain. I am the cunning of the artist. I am a spear that roars for blood. I am the god who fashioned fire for a head. Who explains the stones of the mountains? Who invokes the ages of the moon? Who knows where the sun goes when it sets? Who can command the fish of the sea? On whom do the sea creatures smile? What man can fashion and wield such weapons as I when I invoke poetry, the enchantment of wind?